Welcome to Mind Over Marketing, the show where we break down the marketing, sales, and mindsets that separate the winners from the wannabes. The host, Todd Starr, has been on the front lines of business, sales, and marketing for himself and for his clients for the last 10 years. Todd says, "I believe that success in business isn't about doing more, it's about seeing differently." So today, we're getting inside the mind of somebody who truly thinks differently. They've built a successful business, but more importantly, they've had to outthink, outsell, and outmarket their competition to get to where they are. And we can all learn from their wins, but more importantly, from their failures to make our businesses better.
Cool. So thanks, Marcus, for joining me on Mind Over Marketing. Do you want to start off by telling the audience who you are in your own words and what problem you solve at Via Digital?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me, Matt. So I run a social media agency called Via Digital, and we help brands and podcasts find and build organic audiences, primarily using social media marketing, if I had to put it in a nutshell.
That's a good nutshell. Do you take me back to the beginning? Where did the idea for the company come from? Sort of go right back to the very beginning of the story and walk me through how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, sure thing. So I originally wanted to be a journalist. I went to university for journalism, got a Bachelor of Communications, and then I got a journalism job straight out of university and realized that I hated it. And that the kind of trend in New Zealand was that most publications were starting to wind down. They were already kind of letting go of people at that time. The pay wasn't great, etc. So decided to pack that up and go traveling. And then once I got back from my travels, I kind of landed myself in a more kind of general marketing and communications role and pathway. And then I went overseas again. I moved to Berlin and I got a job managing social media at a startup there called Omio. And I really fell in love with social media marketing, the creativity of it, and what was happening in Berlin and Europe at the time is quite further ahead than New Zealand. So they were doing some really cool creative stuff. And I remember just thinking, oh, this is the kind of pathway that I want to follow, social media marketing. And then I actually came back to New Zealand for a holiday during COVID, or just before COVID started out. And I actually ended up trapped in New Zealand. I couldn't get back into Europe. The company that I was working for was in the travel space. And if you remember, all the borders shut. There was no travel happening in Europe. So I made the decision to stay put in New Zealand. But I had this idea in my head that I wanted to do something in social media. I wanted to create my own social media agency. So I got a job at a marketing agency managing social media down in Hamilton. And the whole time I was there, I was planning my own thing, dreaming up what I wanted to do. And about a year and a half, 2 years into working at that agency, I decided to shift myself back home to Auckland and go out on my own as a contractor and build up my own client base and build my own agency specializing in organic social media marketing. So that was about 3 years ago.
Yeah, well done. Where do you think the sort of that entrepreneurial sort of spirit came from? I was looking online. It looks like your mum owns a business. She's got a cafe or a restaurant or something. So is this like running in the family? Where did that come from? That you wouldn't just stick it out in a job, but that you had this sort of vision to work for yourself?
I've always wanted to do something different, and I've always had these little side projects my whole life. And when I was studying journalism, I had my own music blogs. I've had 3 different music blogs, I think, throughout my life where I was creating content, sharing it using social media. I've done other side projects along the way. So I've always wanted to do my own thing and do something different. But my problem was always consistency. I would start something, get it to a really good level, but then not crack on and take it to that next level. So I think I had to go through that process a few times to learn my own kind of tendencies. And then I realized I wanted to do my own business, and that my main problem was consistency. So if I make this decision, just stick it out, be consistent, go all in,
Yep.
and yeah, that's where I'm at now.
So what did you see in the market? Obviously, you're in a crowded space. We're fortunate down here in Nelson. There's not many people. There's not really any competition for what we do. But obviously, you're in a big city, and there's lots of options. So what was it that you saw in the market that you could do better or differently?
I just saw a lack of creativity in social media marketing in New Zealand compared to the kind of stuff we were doing overseas in Berlin. And I do think New Zealand tends to be, 3 or 4 years behind major trends that happen in larger countries and continents. So I just saw that there wasn't really much innovative, dynamic, engaging content marketing, especially on social media. And I just saw a gap in that space. So it's particularly, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube marketing.
Yep, nice. I'm sure it hasn't been all plain sailing, and there would have been obstacles and challenges and stuff over the last few years. Can you think of any like major sort of tough times that you've had in that last 3 years, and what sort of mindset you use to overcome it and keep going? You mentioned consistency. Maybe that started to creep in after a certain period of time, and how did your mindset shift to keep sticking it out?
So before I started my business, I never really knew much about what it means to run a business. So I'd never sent an invoice. I'd never hired anybody. I'd never, had my own personal clients. So I've gone in pretty green and naive to a bunch of stuff. And the mindset has just been, even if it's uncomfortable, even if I'm not exactly sure what the next steps are going to be, to just keep taking the next step and
Yep.
trusting myself that I'll kind of figure it out along the way as I go. And those kind of situations are just constantly appearing. I
Mm.
remember when I first got hired my first contractor, I was like, oh my God, there's going to be somebody that is, I'm going to be responsible for them and paying them
Mm.
and making sure they do a good job. Like, how the hell am I going to do that? And then I just kind of knew that that's what I was feeling, but went along with it anyway and just trusted that I'd figure it out. Um, and now we have a team of 5, and it's still having those feelings, but just continuing to stay the path and continue stepping into the unknown, just trusting that, trusting myself and the vision and the
Yeah.
plan.
Yeah, nice. So we've got primarily sort of small and medium business audience. What would you say to them in terms of podcasting as a marketing strategy for them? Do you feel like there's still early opportunities? Do you feel like podcasting in New Zealand's up and running, and first mover advantage has maybe disappeared a bit, or do you think some businesses have maybe missed a boat and are now going to be playing catch up? What do you think are the opportunities in podcasting for small businesses?
I think the opportunity still exists. Um, I think first movers in New Zealand was probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Yep.
The market has become more crowded lately, especially, this year and last year. So there's a lot of competition and there's a lot of people starting podcasts, which is great. And the good thing is that there's lots of advertisers and there's increasing audience coming into the New Zealand podcast market. So opportunities definitely exist for brands. The challenge is because of the saturation and the oversupply of podcasts, you have to really stand out. You have to really know who you want to reach with your podcast. I think of Opus Partners. They have one of the top ranking podcasts in New Zealand. They're a business, and they put out really good content focused on educating a very specific audience. So I think there's still large opportunity that exists. It's just about going about it in a very tactical way, which I think a lot of people think, oh, I need to start a podcast, or we should have a podcast, and they just kind of start talking and releasing it. Probably a bit of pre-production planning and strategy would help in
Yep.
this market. But yeah, the opportunity is definitely still strong.
Awesome. Do you ever sit there? Is an opportunity for you to brag here, Marcus. Do you ever sit there and if I look through your Instagram and LinkedIn and on your website, like you are working with like the who's who of New Zealand podcasts, right? It's like some of the biggest shows, recognizable names. Like, do you sit there and pinch yourself at any point and think, fuck, I actually got here, right? We're actually like, your pods that you're working on are winning awards, and like, do you find yourself sitting there and humbling yourself a bit and thinking, fuck, I've actually made it?
Every day, actually. 3 years ago, this was my dream, was to run my own business, let alone be working with, such incredible clients that have such a following, and people love their work, and I help them distribute it and find their audience. It's surreal. Like when I first started my business, I was willing to run a Facebook ad for anybody who needed it, plumbers, tilers,
Mm.
office cleaning company. Like one of my first clients was an office cleaning company, and I was just completely ecstatic and over the moon to have them as a client. So yeah, I do have to pinch myself. It's surreal, and it's just such an amazing opportunity getting to work with legends of the industry. Someone like Rick Solito comes to mind, the
Mm.
creator of Crowd Goes Wild and Sports Cafe.
Yeah.
Getting to work alongside him as a client and picking up some of his knowledge along the way, it's just absolutely surreal. So I definitely don't take any of it for granted.
Give me some name drops. Who you working with?
So my first ever podcast that I worked with was Between Two Beers, who have gone on to become one of the biggest shows in New Zealand. I work with the Dom Harvey podcast, like I said, Sports Cafe, The Good, the Bad, the Rugby, Australia, New Zealand, School Shorts with Melissa Chan Green, the Lead on Purpose podcast, and I recently did some work with Guy Williams on his New Zealand Today podcast. I think that's most of them. Yeah,
Yeah.
those
Nice.
are the ongoing ones. Yeah.
That's some heavy hitters in your CRM there. What responsibility do you take on then for those podcasts? What do you actually help them do?
So anything you see on social media, YouTube, basically anywhere online from those podcasts, me and my team help curate that content. So from YouTube thumbnail, episode title, clips, posts on social media, basically the full kind of digital package of the podcast is what we help them put together. So that means we go through the episodes, find the best moments, find the most intriguing angle, bring that up to the front, and spread it as far and as wide as possible using social media.
Awesome. How do you think you've obviously been involved in a lot of episodes, and doing the back end support and implementation? You'll see all the data and you'll see what works and what doesn't. How do you think for a small business watching this, maybe they're in a B2B space or real estate agent or something like that, that are maybe on the fence and thinking about starting a show or collaborating with someone on a show, like how would you sort of explain to them the value that they can get if they do it well? Like what will a podcast really do for a host in terms of building brand? And
Well, it's massive. I mean, these are a podcast is it's a very intentional consumption. People have to find the show, select the episode, have the headphones on, sit and listen to it. It's not a passive media experience like television or radio. So it really needs to be valuable to them. You need to solve problems that people are experiencing, or you need to entertain them in a way that makes sense for your brand. But I think there's a huge opportunity for educational podcasts. A friend of mine, Luke Kemes, runs the Keep the Change podcast, which
Yep.
is all about financial literacy. And his whole thing is just, it's all educational content that is set up to help people improve their financial literacy. So if a business or a brand takes that perspective, what's our industry? What do we do? How could we help the most amount of people through a podcast? How can we give them the most value as possible in the shortest amount of time? You'll have a good chance at potentially building an audience. And then what a podcast does is it really deepens the relationship that you can potentially have with these people, because it's a vehicle to build trust, showcase expertise, and will probably make the sales process much, much easier if people have that feeling like they know you. Obviously, they trust you if you're doing a good job at it. So yeah, huge returns if you can do it right.
Yeah, for sure. I had a guy, Rory Sutherland, on an episode with me. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Legend.
Yeah, so he
Wow.
I mean, he said, yeah, I just cold emailed him. I actually had to be a bit tactical because you can't find his email. But I went on and found some other people at Ogilvy, and it was basically first name dot first letter of last name at Ogilvy. So I thought I'll give it a go. It's got to be Rory.s at
Wow.
ogilvy.co.uk. Sent him an email, woke up in the morning, and he'd CC'd in his PA, and they'd set it up, and I had him for an hour and 40 minutes. And then the next podcast he went on was the Chris Williams podcast. You know, he's got like 5
Huge.
million subscribers. It's like, at the end of it, I asked him why he came on, because he does not have to do that. I do not know him. My audience is minuscule compared to like a Rogan audience. It's not even, mentionable. But he said something really interesting after we stopped recording about, I think he called it the network effect. It was something around the concept of like, he gets offers all the time for coffees for someone to pick his brain, and he'll go and do them because he's a nice guy and he's sociable, and he'll meet people and staff and have all these meetings, and he'll spend hours and hours every week just talking peer to peer, one person to one person. He said at the end of the day, even if that show that I put out gets 5,000 views, right? Even if it just like gets a little bit of attention, if he looks at that economically, that is 5,000 times more people that have seen it. And there's not much in business that you can get like a 5,000 times return for the same amount of time invested, right? So he says someone might buy a book, Ogilvy in Auckland, I think. Someone might see that episode and end up hiring the company. He might get speaking opportunities. So he recognizes that if he carves out, 10% of his time every month to go on lots of small podcasts around the world, he's just really deepening his reach for the same time that he'd spend at a lunch with someone that works in his office. Like, I think that's the biggest opportunity that I see is people, looking at podcasts and saying, well, I'm not going to be Joe Rogan. I'm not going to get like 50 million views an episode. So what's the point? It's like, if you're a real estate agent and you get 300 or 400 people in your town watching your episode, like, that's insane in terms of like how you're currently spending your time. And then if you look at through that lens of the network effect, the type of guests you could aspire to invite on, your Tom Panoses and your Grant Cardones, like, they will do it. Like, I'm helping clients book guests, and I haven't really had a no yet. And we've asked some big names, big authors, people with, 5 million viewed TED Talks, and they're just saying yes to like brand new podcasts. So I think, there's a massive opportunity there, but you're right. It's really strategy led. Like, if you're just going to get together and sit around a table at the BNZ Partners Center with a shitty little mic and chat a load of rubbish, like, it's not going to work. But with a bit of strategy and a bit of focus, there's a huge opportunity for small businesses.
Exactly right. Exactly right. You have to give people a reason to tune in. You can't just assume that they're going to be interested in what they say. So you have to lead through that, lens of providing value. And
Yep.
what you say about, someone like Rory Sutherland going on a show that's going to get 5,000 views as being really valuable. I think the same is true of social media marketing,
Yep.
TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube. People get disheartened if they post something that only gets 200, 300 views. But the thing is, you don't know who those 200, 300 people are. And especially in a small place like New Zealand, they could be, a big decision maker at a big business.
Yep.
Um,
200 people is a lot of people. If you stand on
Yeah.
stage and talk to 200 people, you'll be nervous.
Yeah. If you
like, if
visualize them in the room,
Yeah.
you would be much happier with a view count
Yeah.
of, 150 people, whereas digitally it looks like nothing. I've been doing a bit more marketing for myself recently. I've been
Yeah.
so busy on my business journey that I haven't had much time to do my own stuff. But just recently, I've been doing a bit more, and I've been creating a lot of TikTok videos, and one I created was about my experience working with Leo Malloy from Headquarters, and I posted it. It was doing okay, but I got an anonymous DM on TikTok from account, anonymous 4705, whatever, but it just said, "Hey Marcus, love your Leo clip. Would love to have a chat with you if you're keen." Signed off from XYZ. Now
Yeah.
I looked up XYZ, and he's the director and founder of a nationally recognized brand, just in my TikTok DMs on an anonymous account from a video that got, a couple thousand views. So
Yeah.
it's crazy what can actually happen once you put stuff out there.
Yeah, I think, what do they call it? Like, lurkers. I think someone
Yeah.
called Lurkers the other day, like I've been doing the same as you. I've been last 10 years just grinding out the business stuff and helping clients. And I thought around Christmas, I'm going to be really intentional this year, using all the skills and knowledge I've got for marketing and apply it to my own business. And I
Yeah.
chose YouTube and LinkedIn as the platforms to focus on.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been posting really consistently on LinkedIn. And while the engagement is up and down, like I'm happy with 30, 40 likes on a post. That's cool. And
Yeah.
then there'll be some that get 1 or 2, but my impressions is like multiple thousands every post. So if I look back over the month, there's like 40,000 people that have read my stuff, and I didn't really connect that to any results. I had a few DMs and a couple of client opportunities, but it wasn't until I went to I don't know what you have up there, but we've got like a Chamber of Commerce. They do like a business after 5 sort of networking event, and I haven't gone to those for months. But I went on Tuesday, and no exaggeration, I had probably 20 conversations with people that had come up and said, "Oh, I'm loving your content. Oh, I saw that post you did about X. Oh, the family thing you did was really nice." Like, I just thought, I'm getting like 11 likes on these posts. And these are like CEOs of big companies, big franchise owners, the CEO of the Chamber of Commerce, that are like sitting there passively consuming the content, not announcing themselves as viewers, but coming up to me when they see me and saying, "I really liked your angle on that." So that really like solidified that in my mind, because I'm thinking, out of that 20, 30,000 group of people reading it, like who is in there, and who
Yeah.
is just a couple of messages away or a few more posts away from a relationship happening. So I
Yeah.
think, what, I guess it's vanity metrics or whatever, but I don't give a shit how many likes I get, as long as I've got 4,000 CEOs reading my post. That's great.
And the best thing is it's free to post,
Yeah,
like you
yeah,
don't have to pay anything and you can reach all of these people,
yeah,
relatively easily from a consistent schedule. Like the return on investment on just purely posting on the organic channels is still so huge and so underrated still in
yeah,
2025, I think.
yeah, 100%. That was pretty much it. I just thought, what else did I have here? Maybe I was looking at your Instagram and you've got some pretty good ball skills.
Oh,
How
yeah.
long have you been playing basketball for?
Basically my entire life. My
Yeah,
dad was a professional basketball coach in the
nice,
NBL. My
cool.
uncle was in the Tall Blacks. You probably can't tell from
For
the
Tuatara.
uh no, he's in like the Tall Blacks.
Oh, yeah, your
And
dad was coaching for
my
Auckland.
dad was the coach of
Yeah,
he coached Wellington Saints, the Hawke's Bay Hawks,
nice.
maybe a few others.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, I've been playing basketball basically my entire life, and
yeah,
I used to play seriously, but now it's just for fun. And the Instagram highlights are a few years old from a couple of 3-on-3 tournaments that I was getting involved in. But yeah, still play every now and then. You can't see on the screen, but I'm like 6'6",
yeah. You're
6'7".
pretty tall.
Yeah.
We need you on the Giants, to be fair, with the amount of
Mm.
consistent threes you were sinking. We're
Ah,
struggling big time.
well, I'm available if they ever need to fill in.
And then last question, just looking again at your Insta and stuff, you've done a lot of traveling. Where's your sort of favorite place that you've been to and why?
Oh, good question. Favorite place I've been to? Mm. I mean, I lived in Berlin for 2.5 years, and I love that city. It's
Yeah.
chaos, craziness, the biggest melting pot I've ever been in. So Berlin has a really special place in my heart. Um, yeah, I really enjoyed South America and
Yeah.
Brazil. Um, but yeah, I'd probably say Berlin. Yeah, it's a very, very special, hectic city. You can kind of find anything that you're interested
Mm.
in a very like extreme fashion with some really cool, creative people from all over the world.
Mm.
So yeah, I would say Berlin. Just never visit in winter because it's absolutely horrific. nine
You've been
hours of
around
darkness.
Asia a bit. Have you spent any time in Hong Kong?
No, I've never been to Hong Kong.
Hong Kong's
Um,
cool.
yeah, I was in Vietnam
Yeah,
a year and a bit ago, and that was really cool. So my girlfriend's from Vietnam, so I traveled
cool.
all around and met all her family, and
Nice.
yeah, got the full introduction into Vietnamese culture, and yeah, the food is absolutely incredible. So I'll
Awesome.
definitely be back there. Yeah.
Another question I forgot to ask, and I'll probably edit this earlier on.
Yep.
What are you looking after customers anywhere? Do they have to be close to you to work with you, or can you take on customers anywhere?
I can take on customers anywhere. Right
Yeah.
now, we're just in New Zealand, but I've been
Yeah.
thinking about potentially expanding into the Australian market. Obviously, there's
Yeah.
a ton more podcasts over there, and there's
Yeah.
a huge amount more audience over
Yeah.
there. So that is in the back of my mind for the future. And but yeah, I mean, it's a digital service
Yeah.
essentially, so could service anywhere. But right now, all of our clients are New Zealand based.
Awesome. And then if someone wanted to talk to you, and maybe they're doing a podcast, thinking about one, or they're already kind of posting and it's not quite working out, like what's the process if they were to engage with you? What do those steps look like?
It would probably just be getting in touch for a chat,
Yep.
a consultation on what their current position is, where they want to go, what some of their goals are, and
Yep.
then figuring out if we're going to be a good fit to help them achieve that.
Yep.
And then from there, typically we always start off with a strategy session, which is a deep dive into what they have been doing, where they want to be, and all of the kind of gaps that are in the way of that,
Yep.
and basically building a blueprint for how to get there. And then
Awesome.
after that, it's picking up the best ideas that they like the best, that are make sense logistically to work, and then figuring out an ongoing monthly kind of support service.
Yep. So you do like a monthly retainer, or you do like packages or something?
Yep, monthly retainer. We don't
Cool.
really do packages.
Yep.
It's kind of all bespoke.
Yep.
Just because I find that so many brands and podcasts, they have different situations. Some have in-house video editors, some don't have anything, some have producers. So I like to keep it a really flexible and mobile arrangement that is going to be best
Yep.
suited to their needs.
Yeah, perfect. Cool, man. That's awesome. Well done. Good work.
Thanks, mate.
Yeah, like you've done really well in the time frame you've done it. I am a bit jealous that I chose to live in Nelson, to be quite honest, because I've been at this for like 10 years, and
Yeah.
yeah, I look at sort of the work that you've achieved, and I'm certain that I'm just in a small little city in like the middle of New Zealand, and just the opportunities I could have pursued if I'd chosen to set up the business somewhere else would have been much bigger. But you've done really well in the time you've been doing this, and yes, it's going to be cool to just keep following along and watching your progress. Yeah, thanks for
mate.
coming on, and I'll link all your stuff because we've got quite a lot of people that would need back-end support on some of the podcasts we do, so I'll definitely be firing some people your way.
Cool, mate. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and
Awesome.
great to connect and chat.
Thanks, Marcus.
Find